So related to this, one of the big issues that we've been seeing recently, as far as I guess wealth inequality, is that fewer people are owning their homes. Basically, people move more for work, but it also means that they're not buying a house.
Mhm.
And of course, if you're renting, you've got to pay, the cost of the landlord, and then they make some money off it, and you're not building wealth either. Um, I assume you see this as a major problem, but is there any way you would try to address that in a Vaush utopia?
Um, could you address what specifically? I'm sorry, my girlfriend's cat just typed up a slurry in chat, and I was confused and upset for a moment before realizing it was the cat.
No, basically the issues of renting and wealth.
Yeah. So I believe in the decommodification of housing, or at least the partial decommodification of housing. Housing is something that absolutely everybody needs under no circumstance. Like, I mean, if you really want to hike it out in the woods, you're totally free to. Most people, most people need houses. And it seems weird. I mean, like rent, like it's sociopathic, really, the renting. Like really think about it. The point of renting is that if you have something you want, but you only need it for a little bit, you pay some money, like for a given length of time, and then you return it. This process does not work for home ownership. The smallest length of time people ever really stay in one place is a year, barring exceptional circumstances. Most people will stay in rented places for far longer than that. My parents, sorry, have been staying together in the same slowly increasing in price rented apartment for 24 years. What does renting do with like a house? Why do we do that? Like really think about it. Now, obviously, the idea is every time you move, you don't want to build a new house, obviously. So, and there's not infinite land. So, you want to take a house that already exists and stay there. And the way we have it now is rather than a person just sort of being there, we have to commodify it, of course. So somebody has to be paid. I mean, we can't just give these up for free, right? The people just take as many as they could. I think in a sane system, we would pay the government. I think the government would own this. I think so. Or massive housing co ops. That's also a good idea. But when private companies own this, there's the rent is literally just like money being taken from you for no reason. It's an investment where everyone else pays the price. If you buy a place and rent it out to other people, you are mathematically guaranteeing after a certain point in time that more people are going to pay you money than what it was originally worth. You're sapping money from the people who want to live there for nothing. You provide nothing for them. Maybe you fix the plumbing now and again. You beyond very minor things. You provide nothing. It's just a system to extract wealth from people because everybody needs to live in a house unless you're hiking it out in the forest. Very few people can afford to buy one, especially in this economy. It's just a system to redistribute wealth from the poor to the wealthy disproportionately. I think that broad housing co-ops or nationalization of housing, where people pay a very small and sort of set amount, would be a good idea. The reason rent control doesn't work in our current system is because it disincentivizes the production of new housing, which means paradoxically that housing surrounding the rent controlled area increases in price because there's not as much competition to drive the price down. Rent control only functionally works if there is an incentive to continue build housing, even if you're not going to make a fuck ton of money on it, which would be either when the government does it or when housing co-ops do it. That's my suggestion.
Okay, so there's something I'm aware of that sounds vaguely similar. It's not the same, but in communist China, which I'm sure you'll disagree that they're even communist in the first place, but
I
in
will,
the
but go
People's
for it.
Republic of China, sure. So in the People's Republic of China, they have a kind of lease system where the government gives extremely long leases. I think it's 99 or 100 years, but the government basically owns all the property, and
Mhm.
everyone's renting it from the government. But it's for such a long time; it's more than your lifetime. Do you think that's a good kind of system to have?
I'm not aware of the particulars, but my ideal system would be one in which there are caps on the price of renting a place, which do not decrease the production of new housing because the housing is controlled by an entity that will produce houses exigent a desire to make a fuck ton of money off of it. So if that system in China succeeds in doing that, which it may well possibly do, then I would probably be in favor of it. Yeah. Yeah. The only thing I don't necessarily like from that is it means that you can't have like heritage housing. I do like the idea of like a family house. There's a lot of culture and sort of longevity that I think are valuable when you can pass a house down from one family to another. But yeah, I don't know. I'd have to look at the specifics. It should be noted that when it comes to the housing system, there is no perfect answer. There is no system that will not leave some people regretting the transition to that system. Every system will have its benefits. I will lean towards systems that promote equality more so than any other, and try to maximize human happiness. But I don't think there's any way to like partition this perfectly. I sometimes think there are perfect upgrades. I don't think there is this time.
How would market socialism avoid the profit motive, as competition is inherent to markets, and further down the line, the return of monopolies?
It wouldn't. It wouldn't. You can't fix that. Decommodification fixes that. One step at a time. Workers need to be in power of society before we can fix other problems. But an important point to keep in mind, the profit motive can be selectively damaging. The profit motive, let's take, for example, global warming. Why do we argue about global warming in this country? Well, it's because, more or less entirely because the Koch brother and Murdoch and all these other dipshit right-wing billionaires have astroturfed, a discourse about it, providing enormous amounts of money and political support and media attention to people who are willing to disprove the global warming narrative. And now we have all these countries that are debating whether or not global warming is a thing, and all of these are countries where Murdoch owns media, coincidentally. These massive conversations, in spite of the fact that everyone knows this to be the case. Every single person knows this. Global warming is real. And it's happening. Like, the USA is like the leader of debating on this. Like, it's crazy. So how is this happening? Well, the reason is because the people who are pushing the propaganda that global warming is fake are in bed with the people who make money from people believing that global warming is fake. Your coal, your oil, your defense industry, all of that stuff, right? Well, why are those companies willing to destroy the planet and collaborate with media billionaires if it just means making more money? Well, that's because the people who are making money from those industries are so wealthy and so powerful that they personally will not experience the consequences of the world being melted over by global warming. If you're a wealthy CEO of a oil tycoon, like, you're not going to experience global warming. You could live 100 more years and you would always have a blimp that you could live in. Like, there's always something you'll survive. But if the media companies and the oil, gas, whatever companies are collectively owned, that means the people who are making those decisions are middle class or thereabouts. And if they're middle class, they will experience the effects of climate change. They will feel the impact. The outcome will affect them. And they now, even though they are still affected by the profit motive, have an incredibly powerful counter narrative, a counter motive. Don't let the planet die. We will suffer from it. So an industry, hundreds of thousands, millions of people strong, which was before completely organized around the interests of just a few billionaires, is now being organized around the collective interests of hundreds of thousands of working class Americans. That is a strong incentive against pushing anti-climate change narrative. Very, very strong incentive, because they will now feel the impact of it. Should it happen? Should they lie about it? That's my answer. The profit motive still exists, but the profit motive is much less pernicious when it is serving the interests of the common folk rather than those of an insulated group of hyper-wealthy sociopaths.
All right. And Vaush, what is your drink of choice?
I only drink water. Fuck everything else. If I really need to drink something that's not water, it'll be cranberry juice, okay? But apart from that, it's all water.